I never thought a single sentence could make my heart feel like it was being squeezed this tightly. It rang out clearly, each word like an icy stone hurled straight at my face. Mom, the upcoming anniversary party is a high-class event. I don't think you'll feel comfortable there. I want everything to be truly top tier, so, please don't attend. That voice came from Lily, my daughter-in-law. No softening, no sugarcoating. And worse than the words was her gaze, not exactly contemptuous, but cold, distant, as if I were an out-of-place decoration in the elegant room she wanted to show off to the world. I stood frozen, feeling as though I'd just been shoved from the top of a high step. This was the daughter-in-law I had once held in my arms and called daughter, the one I defended when relatives looked down on her for her humble background. This was also the woman I'd given a large chunk of my savings to so they could buy their new mansion, the very house for which I still helped pay the annual property tax, just so they could live in peace without worrying. And now, I wasn't high-class enough to stand beside them at a party. I swallowed hard. I couldn't believe my mouth managed to produce a reply so calm. All right. Just one word. But in my head, a voice was screaming, sharp and furious. So I'm high-class enough to give you money, but not high-class enough to sit at your table? Not high-class enough to listen to the live band I helped pay for? Lily, what are you thinking? The questions pounded against my temples like a hammer. I could hear my blood surging, each beat heavy. But my face might as well have been carved from stone. Because the part of me that had always been willing to swallow my pride, to stay silent for the sake of keeping the peace, was dying, bit by bit. The phone buzzed again. A message this time, from my son James. Mom, don't be mad at Lily. She just wants everything to be perfect. You understand, right? Understand? Of course I understood. I understood that his wife's high-class standard now ranked above family bonds. I understood that my son was taking her side, or worse, staying out of it entirely. I set the phone down on the table, my palm icy. Not a single tear fell. Instead, something inside me began to lift its head. A voice, no longer weak or afraid. If they think I'll back down, they're wrong. The silence in my house after that felt thick. The familiar walls, the golden afternoon light spilling into the kitchen, the scent of wood from the dining set I'd bought back when my husband was still alive, all of it seemed to be watching me, quietly witnessing the change. I looked around. The photos on the wall, us in Hawaii the year James got married, the European trip I paid for, so the two of you can have the experience, the housewarming of their new place, all the occasions I'd thought I was helping build a strong family. Looking at them now, they felt like evidence of a string of mistakes. I remembered clearly the day I handed James and Lily the keys to the mansion. Lily had clasped my hands, eyes glistening with tears. Mom, thank you. Don't worry, you'll always have a room here. This is your home too. And I believed her. Because I always wanted to believe. I also remembered painting their master bedroom myself while they were at work. I chose a pale cream because Lily said it was elegant and sophisticated. I ordered a chandelier from overseas, installed each curtain rod and piece of furniture myself. Back then, I thought keeping my hands busy was easier than thinking about the growing distance between us. But no, it wasn't a natural distance. It was a deliberate one. I had let myself be the helper for far too long, the one who paid, who fixed, who cleaned up the mess. So much so, they might not even see me as a person anymore. Just a resource. And when that resource no longer fit the image, it was discarded. The next morning, I couldn't stand it anymore. I called Amelia, my longtime friend. She arrived in less than an hour. She didn't ask what happened right away, just set her bag down and looked me straight in the eye. I handed her my phone so she could read the message. When she finished, she shook her head slightly. They planned this, Evelyn. The words dropped like a stone into a deep well. I thought it was just Lily, but James, he's not that kind of person. Amelia put a hand on my shoulder, her eyes firm. Evelyn, you raised a good son. But he's never truly struggled in life. You've always taken care of everything. And Lily, she sees that. She knows exactly how far she can lead him. I felt each word like salt on a wound. Amelia went on, her voice lower. You need to check everything, your bank accounts, property papers, investments. Are you sure your name is still on them? I froze. I let Lily handle all the online payments. She said it would make tax filing easier. Amelia frowned. Evelyn, you need to log in yourself today. If you see anything unusual, go to a lawyer immediately. A chill ran down my spine. Yes. I needed to know the truth even if it hurt. Early the next morning, I sat at my computer. The familiar login screen, my hands trembling slightly as I typed in the password. The numbers, the transactions appeared. At first glance, everything looked normal. But I began scanning more closely. There were multiple small, regular transfers. Notes, furniture maintenance, event costs, home decor. But I had never agreed to spend money on those. The recipient? Not me. A secondary account under Lily's name. My heart dropped. Bit by bit, she had been draining my account, so subtly I hadn't even noticed. This wasn't just about being high class or uncomfortable. This was theft. James, did he not see it? Or did he see and stay silent because he benefited? A coldness seeped into every joint in my body. Not anger, clarity. I closed the laptop. Their game had just revealed its first card. I started with the simplest thing, calling my financial advisor. Hello, Mrs. Evelyn. Mr. Harris, the man who had managed my investment portfolio for years, still had that familiar warm tone. What would you like to review today? I want to go through everything, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Recently, my daughter-in-law has been handling some payments. I just want to make sure everything is still as we originally planned. I heard the sound of his fingers tapping on the keyboard, then a brief pause. Overall, things look fine, he said, then his tone dropped slightly. But I am seeing a few recent transfers, quite large, noted as interior upgrades, event deposit. Event? I repeated, my throat suddenly dry. Yes. And technically, they were approved by your representative account. I sat up straighter. What representative account? A secondary authorized user, he replied carefully. Name. Lily Anderson. According to the durable power of attorney you signed last April. In my mind, an image flashed of that sweltering afternoon, Lily arriving with a set of documents and a young woman who introduced herself as a notary. Mom, please sign this for me, just in case of emergencies. You won't have to worry about the little things, Lily had said, smiling sweetly, pouring me a cup of hot tea. I had signed. Because I wanted to believe. Mr. Harris, I said slowly, each word hardening, from now on, you flag every single transaction, not 1 cent leaves the account without my direct approval. Activate every layer of authentication. All of them. Of course, he replied immediately. I'll set up 2-step verification for all transfers. I hung up, staring at the silent kitchen. The initial shock gave way to something else, a thin, transparent sheet of ice spreading over my nerves. I saw everything more clearly, cold, sharp. I texted Amelia, I need a lawyer. Today. She called back immediately. His name is Mr. Lamont. I got you an appointment early this afternoon. Can you make it? I can. Mr. Lamont's office was on the 7th floor of an old building, the small brass nameplate polished to a shine from daily cleaning. He was in his 60s, kind-eyed, but his gaze missed nothing. What do you need me to help you with? He asked, already opening a small notebook. I need to lock everything down, I said. Revoke all levels of financial power of attorney previously given to Lily. Audit every transaction. And, if the law allows, I want to nullify any agreements I signed under manipulation. Mr. Lamont clasped his hands, thinking for a moment. It will be tense. I know, I replied. They started the tension first. He nodded, jotting quick notes. First, send a notice revoking all current powers of attorney, inform financial institutions about the change in approval signature, suspend all outgoing transactions from any accounts in your name. Second, request detailed statements for the last 18 months, cross-check beneficiaries. Third, prepare a file in case there's evidence of fraud, coercion, or elder abuse. He looked up. Would you be willing to work with a private investigator? I want to know everything, I said. Down to the last cent. He gave a faint smile. Then let's begin. That night, a white envelope was slid quietly through my front door. I saw it while making tea, thick, clean, with a small yellow sticky note on the corner, the handwriting round and familiar. Mom, sign when you have time. This will make things simpler while we're busy preparing the event series. Lily. We're busy. Event series. And I. Not high class enough to attend. I sat down, opened the envelope, and pulled out a stack of papers. Perfectly formatted, elegant wording, asset streamlining, simplifying inheritance, optimizing management. I read slowly, line by line, not skipping a single period. Buried in the middle of all those polished phrases, like a gold-plated hook. Full, irrevocable power of attorney. Authority over financial, real estate, even medical decisions. Effective immediately upon signing. I set the papers down, listening to my heartbeat, each thump clear and deliberate. This was no longer a hot, blazing anger. It was something colder, more enduring, awareness. They didn't want to wait. They wanted control over me while I was still breathing. I slipped the stack back into the envelope as if it had never been opened, placing it neatly on the kitchen counter beside the sugar jar and the jasmine tea tin. Let them think I was still easy. The next morning, I arrived at Mr. Lamont's office 15 minutes early. I slid the envelope across to him. He flipped through the pages, his brow furrowing deeper, then finally looked up. They're pushing their luck. I didn't sign, I said. Good, he replied, slow and firm. We'll accelerate. I'll send formal notices to temporarily freeze all representative rights. From now on, no one can sign anything on your behalf. I'll introduce you to Paul the investigator. He'll start with the small transactions you noticed. I nodded. Do it. Paul arrived on time, compact build, few words. We'll follow the money, he said. Money always leaves footprints. What followed were long hours of bank statements, columns of numbers, tiny transaction descriptions. Money for decorations, money for event services, money for DJ deposit, then larger sums, money for interior contractor retainer, money for design package payment. Following the trail, many amounts flowed into Lily's credit card, some detoured into an investment account with an unfamiliar name, but the phone number for verification matched hers. This is a pattern, Paul said, tapping the spreadsheet lightly with his pen. Small, steady, over time. Mixed with a few large amounts, dressed up with fancy notes. Done by someone who knows the ropes. I looked at the cold numbers. Strangely, I no longer felt choked. Words and figures had turned the vague into the undeniable. And the truth, it turned out, was liberating. In the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Paul. You should know this right away, he said bluntly. Lily just applied for pre-approval on a second loan, using the mansion as collateral. The application was filed last week, with a private lender. I closed my eyes for a second, then opened them. Did they mention the source of the asset? Did they disclose anything about using my money? No, he said. In the file, they described it as an internal family transfer. The lender seems impressed with the strong backing from relatives. Backing. The word hit my ears like a dry, sarcastic laugh. Do they know I found out? I asked. Not yet. As far as they're concerned, you're still silent. Good, I said. Let them think that. The days that followed moved like a machine. Every morning, I sat between two men at opposite ends of the table, Mr. Lamont and Paul. No small talk, no complaints. Just the work. Sending formal notices to revoke all previous representative rights. Setting live signature requirements for all major transactions. Notifying banks of changes to signature stamps. Contacting the land registry to flag unusual transaction alerts. Building a reconciliation chart, each withdrawal, date, time, login IP. Compiling evidence, screenshots, email notifications, electronic invoices. The file thickened each day. I thought I would feel humiliated seeing each instance of blood being drained from me. But no. It felt like stitching up a wound. Yes, it hurt, but it was the kind of pain that heals. One afternoon, Mr. Lamont slid a few pages toward me. You might want to read this. It was a printed copy of an email conversation between Lily and a luxury event planning company. They discussed the platinum package for the anniversary party items that dazzled just to read, imported floral walls, a crystal entryway, cold fireworks, custom gifts for guests, a jazz band, a strict black tie dress code. Every email was signed, Lily Nguyen Event Director. The sending address, an email account created in my name. At the bottom of the signature line, in small print, Evelyn's family office. I let out a short, hoarse laugh devoid of any humor. She's using my name to boost the prestige, I said. We'll add this to the file for manipulation and impersonation, Mr. Lamont nodded. That afternoon, Paul brought me another report. Lily had been using a secondary card linked to my account for a string of questionable expenses: luxury spa treatments, jewelry rented for the event, a deposit for a photo shoot location. There was also a transfer into an investment fund under her maiden name, turning my money into the bride's family contribution in the eyes of both sides of the family. She's not just spending, Paul said plainly. She's building a narrative. One where you are the invisible resource. I've been invisible long enough, I replied. That's over. That night, I didn't turn the lights on. I sat by the window, watching the street lamps cast long gold streaks across the rain-slick pavement. Somewhere far off, the city still buzzed, but inside me it was as calm as a still lake. I thought about my ex-husband, about all the years we scraped and saved so James could have a proper education, so he could go to summer camp. I thought about the first time I called Lily daughter, how I had believed that family was something you expanded with love, not something you narrowed for the sake of appearances. Silence isn't surrender, I whispered. Silence can be a blade. I closed my eyes and let that feeling spread through me, no more fear. Only preparation. The next morning, we shifted into a higher gear. Mr. Lamont handed me a short list, each item a lock on a door. Change all account passwords, disable any unknown devices. Register a legal alert at the notary's office. Refuse to notarize any document in my name without my physical presence. Ask the bank to issue new cards, cancel all secondary cards. Open a backup account at a different bank, move the majority of assets there, leaving only enough for basic expenses. Contact the business registry to check whether my name was being used in any filings. By early afternoon, a message from the bank, secondary card ending in 8897 has been cancelled. I exhaled, short. One mesh of the net had closed. By evening, Paul sent me a transaction timeline map. On it, tiny dots clustered thickly around key dates: the day they toured the event venue, the day they put down the deposit for the band, the day they finalized the platinum package. And right in the middle of that cloud, one dot stood out: the day I signed the durable power of attorney. She started here, he pointed. When you trusted. I stared at that small dot for a long moment. I let my daughter-in-law use my trust like a key, I said. Now we lock it. 2 days later, another discovery. Paul called in the middle of a meeting. Mrs. Evelyn, the lender, just sent a welcome email to Lily. They've approved the preliminary stage for the second loan. They're asking for one more thing, a notarized copy of the power of attorney, and some asset verification documents. The irrevocable power of attorney in the envelope? I asked. Yes, he said. They may be planning to have you sign it right before closing. Quick, clean, done. I felt no panic. No racing heartbeat. Only one command in my mind: keep going. Good, I said. Let them think so. Late that night, I returned home, walking through each room like I was patrolling a fortress. The custom curtains swaying in the breeze, the kind Lily said were more high-class than regular fabric ones. The crystal chandelier hanging from the ceiling, something I paid half for, to brighten the space. The white dishes with gold rims they used for guests, I'd chosen them because they were safe and elegant. Leaning against the cool stone of the kitchen counter, I said softly, every item you call a symbol of class was bought with my love. You can't buy me with them. I opened a drawer and took out the photo from the housewarming. Everyone smiling wide, glasses raised, Lily standing in the center like the true lady of the house. I turned it over, wrote one short line, enough. Then I slid it deep into the drawer until it disappeared from sight. On the 5th day, Mr. Lamont said, we'll file the paperwork on Amelia Day. After that, it'll be their turn to discover the locks have changed. I nodded. File everything, the revocations, the alerts, the evidence of withdrawals. And one more thing, he added. Contingency plan: if they respond with legal action, we'll have enough to face them. I leaned back in my chair, feeling my shoulders lighter. Not because the story was ending, I knew it still had a long way to go. But because I finally had my hands on the steering wheel of my own life. I sent one short message to Amelia, set. Amelia Day. She replied with a single fist emoji. That was enough. That night, I sat by the window again, listening to the sparse cars passing on the street. I thought about that word, class, the one that had been thrown in my face that day. I laughed, no bitterness left. Turns out the class they wanted was pretending to have all kinds of things, wearing hollow titles, burning money on imported flowers and glossy, edited pictures. The class I chose was sitting here alone, signing papers heavy as stone, to take back my name from people I once called family. Amelia Day, I whispered. On Amelia Day, my no will be in ink. I turned off the light, went to my bedroom, closed the door softly. Sleep came late, but it came whole. For the first time in a long while, I didn't dream about parties. I dreamed of a morning kitchen, the kettle softly clicking as the water boiled, and an empty wooden table clean, with no need to be staged for anyone else to see. In the morning, I was the first one at the notary's office. Mr. Lamont was waiting, a thick folder in hand, Paul standing behind him with another set of documents, neat as a scalpel. Let's begin, Mr. Lamont said. Begin, I echoed. Pen to paper. The first signature. Then the second. Then the third. Each stroke cut through an invisible cord that had been wrapped around my chest for so long. I felt my spine straighten. Warmth returned to my palms. The room, suddenly, had sound: the rustle of paper, the glide of pen, the quiet breath of my own lungs. When I finished, Mr. Lamont gathered the pages, clipped them, slid them into a hard cover. That's this part done, he said, a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. From now on, no one touches your accounts, assets, or legal name without you. We've also sent notice to that private lender: any representation documents from a third party are invalid. Good, I said. Let them wonder what happened. Paul handed me a thin file, transaction timeline. Every transfer, every invoice, every IP. If they still want to call it just a misunderstanding, give them this. I smiled. Thank you. On the way out of the building, sunlight poured over the steps like diluted honey. I stopped for a moment, looking up. In my mind, I saw Lily's face tilting slightly as she said, "Class," thin lips, a smile that never reached her eyes. I imagined her now, somewhere between dress fittings, menu tastings, assigning roles to guests, confident the reins were still firmly in her hands. I chuckled softly. Keep thinking that for a few more days, dear. That afternoon, I stopped by the mansion. Not to see anyone. Just to look one last time at each brick, each tree in the yard that I had paid for, watered, believing I was nurturing a home for my son. The door was locked, the entrance empty, the polished stone reflecting a sky dotted with clouds. I stood at the edge of the yard, hand resting on the cold gate. A strange feeling came over me, not regret, not anger. A farewell. This much is enough, I murmured to myself. Enough to teach me that being needed is not the same as being loved. I turned away, walking off, leaving behind a house beautiful enough for a magazine and a fractured story stitched back together with steel thread. On Amelia Day, the plan would move into its next phase. Silent, but not bowed. Quiet, but not endured. Class. I smiled to myself as I got into the car. They'll soon learn a new definition of the word. 3 days after the filing, my phone rang at 8 a.m. Paul's number. I knew, just from seeing his name on the screen, that something new had happened. Mrs. Evelyn, Paul began, his voice still steady but carrying a new layer of gravity, the lender just sent a request to re-verify ownership of the mansion. Someone named Lily called them, acting shocked and angry when she learned the mortgage rights had been frozen. I braced one hand on the table, feeling a cool gust run down my spine. So, they've started to see the door closing, I said. Yes. And it's possible they'll come back sooner than planned to deal with it. I gave a thin smile. Good. Let them come back when everything is already done. That day, I spent the entire morning at Mr. Lamont's office, going through the final review. Deed revocation, updated in the land registry. Bank accounts, separated, majority moved to a new bank, remainder flagged with dual transaction alerts. All secondary cards, cancelled. All financial institutions, notified to accept only my live signature. Evidence file, organized in chronological order, every unauthorized charge with a screenshot of the statement, recipient information, and the notes Lily used. We've completed everything before they even get a chance to open their mouths, Mr. Lamont said, snapping shut the final folder. There's just one more thing, if you want, we can sell the mansion right now. Cash buyer, payment within 48 hours, contract already drafted. I looked at him for a long time. In my mind, an image flashed: Lily standing in the living room at the housewarming, the satisfied look in her eyes as she boasted, "This is our home." I felt my head nod, very slowly. Sell. Mr. Lamont smiled, the smile of someone who had been waiting to hear that word. You'll sleep well tonight. The deal moved as quickly as Paul promised. A young couple, clean records, cash ready. On the afternoon of the signing, when I held the contract with the words, "Paid in full," printed clearly across it, the entire room felt bigger. The invisible cords that had been wrapped around my chest unraveled, strand by strand. The money was transferred directly into the new account, the one only Mr. Lamont and I knew about. No one else. Especially not Lily. I drove home in silence, the streetlights sliding past my windows in long streaks of light. In my head, a single phrase repeated, "It's done." The morning they came back from their trip, I was already there. I parked at the end of the street, far enough that they wouldn't notice me right away. James's shiny SUV turned in, stopping right in front of the gate. The door opened, Lily stepped out first, sunglasses perched on her head, lips glossy, her voice carrying. James, remember to call the planners to finalize the table count. We can't let it get delayed. James didn't answer, his eyes still on his phone. Then they both froze. 2 moving trucks blocked the driveway. In front of the gate, a young couple was laughing with the realtor. They held brand new keys. The gate opened, and the couple stepped into their home. Lily whipped around to look at James, her brows drawn tight. What is this? I shut my car door and walked over. The sound of my shoes against the pavement was like a countdown. James was the first to recognize me. Mom. I nodded in greeting, without a smile. From now on, you don't have to worry about managing anything for me. Color rose in Lily's face, her voice sharp and high. What the hell are you talking about? This is our house. We're in the middle of refinancing, you know that, right? Calmly, I opened my bag and pulled out a thick folder. These are the only contracts that still stand. I handed it to James. His hands trembled as he flipped through each page. The deed revocation. The sale contract. Proof of unauthorized transactions. The power of attorney. Lily had slipped under my door when I was home alone. Lily snatched it, flipping frantically, her eyes scanning for a loophole. These won't hold up, she shouted. We did all of this for you. You'll regret this when you calm down. I looked straight at her, my voice even and low. You mean taking money from my accounts, forging documents, and trying to strip me of all legal rights before your high-class party? Her jaw tightened. James spoke up, his voice hoarse. Mom. I didn't mean. I held up my hand to stop him. Enough. One word. Hard. Clean. No one spoke after that. I pulled a thinner folder from my bag and handed it directly to Lily. If you want to sue, this is what you'll be facing. Inside was the complete evidence, screenshots of bank statements, secondary card details, emails with the lender, the second mortgage application file, and the messages she had sent me. Everything arranged perfectly, with dates, times, and witnesses. I dipped my head slightly, my eyes never leaving hers. If we go to court, all of this becomes public record. Everyone will read every line. Every number. Lily's face went pale. James turned to her and whispered. What did you do? Don't pin this on me, James. Lily snapped, her voice breaking. When the money was flowing, you didn't object. I watched them, seeing the cracks begin to spread across the marriage mask they had worn so well. I was once your mother, James, I said. But you turned me into a target. They stood there, silent. I drew a deep breath, then ended it. This isn't revenge. This is self-defense. And I'm done. Lily gave a bitter laugh, forcing a tone of disdain. You think you've won? You'll just die alone. I smiled faintly, unblinking. Alone is still better than being used. I turned and walked away, leaving behind the sound of an argument beginning to erupt. I didn't look back. That afternoon, I went to my new apartment. Not big, not fancy, but mine. Entirely mine. I locked the door, feeling as if an invisible pair of arms had wrapped around me. My phone buzzed. A message from James. Mom, please, can we talk? This isn't what I wanted. I read it but didn't reply. The second message came quickly. I'm sorry. Lily went too far. She pressured me. You know what she's like. I never wanted to hurt you. I could almost hear his voice, the voice that had softened me so many times before. But this time, it had no effect. I placed the phone face down on the table. Walked to the window, opened it just a crack, letting the evening breeze spill in. The sound of children playing drifted up from the end of the street, pure, without calculation. Behind me, the apartment was quiet, empty in the most comfortable way, no one rummaging through my things, no one handling it for convenience, no one slipping papers in front of me to sign blindly. They had once thought I couldn't live without them. The truth was, I had been living suffocated under them for far too long. Every sacrifice, every dollar, every hour of my labor had been twisted into a tool for control. And now, having taken it all back, I had never felt lighter. Let them be angry, let them panic, let them cast blame. I had nothing left to give. And that was exactly what made me the freest woman I had ever known. I whispered to myself, as if affirming it to my own soul. Silence doesn't mean weakness. And this time, I truly believed it. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of chamomile tea before me. No TV, no background music, only the steady ticks of the wall clock. I realized it was the first time in months I had truly sat alone without wondering what Amelia Day should do to please someone else. It had taken me years to hone silence into a habit. But now, silence had become a choice. And it carried a completely different weight. The next morning, I received an email from Mr. Lamont. Mansion, transfer of ownership completed, funds safely in the private account. All bank accounts, locked, status against any third-party transactions. Power of attorney, fully nullified, cancellation records filed with both relevant offices. Legal alerts, noted in the notary system. The last line of the email, they can't do anything now, unless you allow it. I read that line over and over, letting it sink into me completely. No longer, I hope they won't do anything anymore. It was, they can't. And the choice was mine. By noon, I went out to buy a few things for the new apartment, a plain ceramic tea set, a pothose plant for the window corner, and a gray and white checkered tablecloth. Small things, but each one chosen by me, no one else's opinions creeping in, no one suggesting and then forcing. When I set them on the table, I realized something. This home was starting to take my shape, not the high-class version in someone else's eyes. That afternoon, the phone rang. Unknown number. I hesitated a second, then answered. Mom, it's me. James's voice. Hesitant, cautious. Lily. Lily went to stay at her mother's place. I think, we need to talk. I stayed silent, waiting to see what he would say. I know things went too far. But Mom, I just want you to know. I never intended to take anything from you. His voice cracked. I let things get out of control. I listened, but didn't answer right away. Not because tears or affection stopped me from speaking. But because I was weighing whether my answer was even necessary. Finally, I spoke, slow and clear. James, I gave you every chance to prove you were different. You didn't take them. Now I don't blame you anymore. But I also won't give anyone, including you, the chance to do that a second time. Silence on the other end. Then a long sigh, and the call ended. That evening, I stood on the balcony, the new pothose swaying gently in the breeze. Warm yellow light spilled from the apartment across the street. I looked down at the road, saw a group of students pushing a street food cart into the alley, laughing loudly. None of them knew anything about the months I had just lived through. And I thought, that was fine. Not everyone needs to know how you survived. Sometimes, the most beautiful victory is the one only you understand, step by step. The next day, I spent the morning at the cafe near my home. I brought a new notebook and started writing a list of things I wanted to do, not for anyone else, but for me. Take a watercolor painting class. Travel alone in December. Call my sister in Australia and plan a visit. Try cooking beef bourguignon again, the way my husband used to love. With each line I wrote, I felt lighter. As if I were slowly filling the empty spaces with things I chose, not the duties imposed by others. That afternoon, I received a message from a different number, Lily's. Only one line. You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. I read it, then deleted it immediately. No saving, no reply. Because nothing in that story was worth my response anymore. On the third day after they returned, I happened to run into Lily at the supermarket. She was at the checkout, her cart nearly empty, her eyes flicking quickly when she saw me. No smile, no greeting. I walked past, giving only the slightest nod like acknowledging an old acquaintance I no longer had any reason to keep in touch with. And the strange thing was, it felt perfectly comfortable. In the weeks that followed, I gradually found my rhythm again. Morning watering the plants, brewing coffee, opening the windows to let in the light. Walking around the park where I used to go with my husband every Sunday. Buying new books, reading late into the night, with no one scolding, "Mom, you're up too late." Each of those moments felt like proof that I hadn't just reclaimed my assets. I had reclaimed the right to be myself. One evening, Amelia came over. She brought a bottle of wine and a box of egg tarts. "For you," she said, setting them on the table. "I think it's time you celebrated a little." We sat across from each other, poured the wine, clinked glasses. Amelia looked at me and smiled. "I've never seen you stand so tall." I smiled too. Maybe it's because I've stopped bowing. The bottle slowly emptied. Amelia asked, "Do you have any regrets? About your child, about everything?" I shook my head. Houses can be rebuilt. Money can be earned again. But trust, once it's broken, keeping it only keeps the pain alive. Amelia nodded, saying nothing more. We sat in silence, but it was a warm silence, nothing like the heavy one in that mansion. Over a month later, I received a letter from the bank, confirmation that all assets and usage rights had been updated according to the new instructions. No more Anderson Lily anywhere. I placed the letter into a separate folder, marked "Complete" on the cover. Then locked it away in the cabinet. Not to pull out whenever I wanted to brag. So that whenever my trust wavers, I can open it, look inside, and remember. I once stood up, and I will always be able to do so again. One afternoon, while out walking, I saw a young couple leaving the real estate office on the corner. They were beaming, holding a stack of papers tightly in their hands. I knew that feeling, the feeling of starting a new chapter. I wished them luck silently, then kept walking. We all deserve a fresh start, but only when we don't build it on someone else's exploitation. That evening, I sat by the window, the yellow glow of the street lamp spilling in, and opened the notebook where I had written my "things I want to do" list. I checked off the second item, go to Lake Tahoe alone. The ticket was booked, the hotel chosen. I would go next week. I closed the notebook, leaned back in my chair, and felt a rare, peaceful calm wash over me. This time, I didn't need anyone to come along to feel complete. I had found myself again. In the quiet, I thought about the phrase that had once haunted me. Silence doesn't mean weakness. Now, I wanted to add another part. Sometimes, silence is the clearest proof of strength. I smiled, gently set my teacup on the table, and let the night pass like an old friend, calm, asking nothing of me except my presence. Amelia Day would once again be a day entirely my own. And to me, that is the only class worth keeping. This story reminds us that trust is a precious gift, but once it is betrayed, we have the right to take back everything, not just our assets, but also our freedom and dignity. Sometimes, silence is not weakness, but a way to prepare the sharpest counterattack. Family bonds cannot be measured by money or outward class, but by respect and sincerity. When we dare to say no to exploitation, we not only protect ourselves but also reclaim our true self, strong, peaceful, and free.